And it says we are live. Let's wait one more minute.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys followed me last week. I got a really nice prize from my team, Patrons of Enterprise Application Architecture.
Wow.
I think it fits NestJS project quite well. Very cool book, by the way. Definitely recommend.
Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Oh, 10 o'clock.
It's 10, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Code Hour, XT Code Hour or XTechnology Code Hour. We are XTechnology, collaboration of people who likes technology and exploring different topics in that area. Yeah, what do we have today? Well, it's actually a few things. First of all, we welcome Denise and Andrew, of course. This is a topic about NestJS, already a third part, so you can follow the links in this YouTube description and see part 1 and part 2. So today is about documentation seeding database, but I'm not gonna say much more than that. I think one more important point is that we try different angles and different configuration for stream, and I think quality-wise it's really doing great. So please leave a comment. What do you think about this setup? And hi, Denise.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's my first like a debut on YouTube, so I will try to tell you something interesting.
Cool. Yeah, and today we're gonna start this documentation, and I just want to tell a couple of words about it. Documentation is an interesting topic because it's sometimes not prioritized enough. But everybody knows that if in project you have good documentation, it simplifies a lot of things because everybody can share the same vision, everybody can read the same things and improve on it. And today we're talking about collaboration between front-end engineers and back-end engineers, because usually back-end engineers prepare some API, front-end engineers start using it. And it's awesome when you have documentation about the API when you start developing front-end. And today Denise is gonna tell us about how to generate it automatically and keep up to date for NestJS project. Okay, Denise, I think that we can start.
Yeah, okay. So, but at first I want to tell a little bit information about important things in our application. It's validation. And I will just mention some information. Probably we will get some separate meeting where we can discuss it more deeply. But for today, I want to show some validation options before I will try to configure our documentation. So at first, if we will follow Nest documentation, we can find special section for our validation. Let's do it like in real life. I open docs, nestjs.com, and let's try to find something about validation.
Denise, maybe you can make fonts in browser a little bit bigger. Just hit Command+.
Okay, we'll try.
Yeah, thank you. That's well.
Mm-hmm. So I search validation, and you can choose this section and see what Nest suggests for us. So you can see that Nest suggests using two libraries. First of them is class validator, and second one class transformer. Second one, class transformer, we don't require it for now, but it might be useful for you if you, for example, need to transform your parameters, your request parameters. For example, there might be such situation when you pass query parameters, maybe it numbers, and you want to get its as numbers on your backend side. By default, you will get strings. So no transformation will be available by default. But if you will use class transformer library, you can write some special code to convert your string values to numbers. And sometimes it may be very useful for you. But today we will discuss class validator library. So let's start from installing dependencies at first. We need to install class validator, class transformer. I open it, our project, and let's create new branch. I will call it docs and validation.
Oh, we gotta get first pull request soon. I feel it.
Yeah, they will. Okay, at first, let's install our dependencies. We're using yarn for it. Yarn add class validator class transformer. While installing, we can see how we need to configure it. As far as I know, we can use validation for all endpoints. To make it available, we need to configure some global pipes, and you can find it in auto validation section. So here we just need to set up use global pipes in our main file. Let's do it. Main, yes, yeah, somewhere here. We can insert it here. Let's import our dependencies. Okay. And after that, we will get validation for all our configured endpoints. Just to set validation, we need to specify types for our request payloads. If we use NestJS 6 CRUD library, it will be available for us by default. We don't need to write anything else. For custom endpoints, we will need to add some decorators to pass validation schema. So as I know, we already have some model. Yeah, it's products model. And we have products controller here. This product model. Okay.
Looks like Prater complaining about double quotes.
Yeah, it's because I enabled Prater, and seems like our Prater configuration can be different from yours. So it's not a problem. We can fix all of warnings here. And so we now enable our validation, and let's try to pass some requests to our endpoints and see what we will get. I have a create endpoint here, and let's create some product.
Could you try to make fonts bigger here as well? Command plus, or it will not work.
Oh yeah, it works fine.
Yeah, maybe a bit bigger. Yeah, that's cool.
It's fine.
Yeah. Now it's readable.
Okay, so let's try to create some product. Product 1. I use Postman for all my requests. It's a very useful program. Description, price. Okay, let's try to send. Yeah, at first we need to start our project.
Oh.
And API will be available for us. Let's start it. Here are some errors. Can't find model NestJS Swagger.
Probably
it might be Swagger. It might be some errors with this folder, so I prefer to delete it and try again.
But I've not seen how you installed NestJS Swagger module. I remember only class validator.
Yeah, it's right. For now, we're discussing validation subject, and
okay.
a little bit later we will
okay,
try validation. So I restart our application. Let's try again. Now it seems to work. All our registered endpoints available for us.
Could you show the response? Oh.
Yeah. So we successfully create new product. We can check it in our database. Let's see. Yeah. Product 1, test description. All seems good to me. What next? Let's try to omit some field and see what will happen on the backend side. Because I know that for now we're using product model and we don't specify that we can use, for example, null value for some fields. We need to require all fields now. And let's try to omit some field here. We create different products, but without name. Yeah, you can see that we get 500 error code and message internal server error. And it's not so user-friendly description for errors.
Yeah.
We can't understand what we're doing wrong. And here the validation started and can be very useful for us. Let's understand how we can use our validation to describe some schema for validation. We need to describe some decorators inside our model. And we can find what we need to specify in documentation for class validator. Class validator rules. What we can find here. Here is a basic usage example, and you can see that we're specifying some rules to validate it. It might be is integer or minimum value or maximum value. We can pass some parameters. It's email. It's also common case. Is date. So let's try to find all available rules for us. I remember, yeah, here's the table, and you can find all available rules here. Defined is optional, equals is empty, is not empty. And let's try this one and specify it for all our fields. Is not empty. As you can see, it will be check our strings and objects and fields.
Looks like it will not work for price because price is not string.
Yeah, sure. Column is not empty. You can see it's imported from class validator, and that's also specified for description. Yeah, our project rebuilt, and let's see what we get for now. Description. Yeah, now we have user-friendly error, and we can understand what happened. We have a status code, which tell us that we pass some invalid data, and we have a message. So we need to specify name to pass correct request data. And it seems better for me. For now, we can show it in our UI and front end, and it can be useful.
Yeah, much nicer.
So it's just a basic example of our validation. It might be more complex, and also we can use special groups to specify in which scenarios we need to optional fields or it might be required. So for example, when we create some item, many of fields must be required. But if we want to update some fields, we need to specify just updated fields. We don't need to pass a whole object. So we can also configure such behavior and many other things. So this library is very useful, and maybe you will try it sometime.
Definitely.
What else? When we have some basic validation, we also can try to get documentation for our endpoints. How we already discussed it, it's very important things in every project. We need to have documentation to share it between team members and to show new features, new updates, and other things. So what we must do to create some documentation? Let's try to find information about it. Documentation. Yeah, you see there is Open API section where you can find all information related to available documentation. The first section, introduction. And here you can see dependency that we need to install NestJS Swagger. Let's do it. We'll type yarn add NestJS Swagger. Let's see how we can use it. Here's also a very straightforward and simple way to create our documentation. We just need to add this code to our main.ts file.
I like how everything is done in NestJS. You just put some lines and awesome things start working.
Yeah, that's right. And they also have very good documentation. So you can find many information without additional source. Yeah, let's import all dependencies here. And let's discuss what we type here, what parameters we set for our documentation. At first, we creating some config for Swagger model, for Swagger documentation, and we can specify some title. We can set description, and we can set version of our Open API documentation. And we can also add some text. Text here, it's using for grouping your endpoints. For example, if you have products model, it will be very useful if you will see all endpoints related to products in special group. And its group also can be called products, and you will see all endpoints grouped by this tag. So I will show it a little bit later. And by default, Swagger model can add default models for you. Here we add cats model, but honestly, I can't understand why we need it, because we don't have, for example, cats model. And if we will add this model, we will add special tag inside this model. So it looks a little bit unusual for me, and maybe you know why they suggest to use such function. So let's see just what we get. What we get next. We create some document, and we pass some basic options. First of them, it's a path where your documentation will be available for you. I prefer to set docs here. Let's rebuild our application and see what we get. So now our documentation should be available on 3000 port by docs URL. Let's try localhost and docs. Yeah. We can see default layout for our documentation, and we can see cats group, but as I already said, I can't understand why we need it, because we don't have any endpoints for that group. And all other endpoints grouped by default tag, because we don't specify anything else. Let's try to set our parameters for documentation. So let's type our title, description, and set proper tag for us. So I prefer to take title and description from our README file. Yeah, Nest TypeORM boilerplate. Let's name it the same way. Nest TypeORM boilerplate documentation. And let's also set some description. Yeah, it took a little bit longer, but let's see what we'll get. Let's set first version, it's okay. And I prefer to just remove this tag, we don't need it. Remove cats tag. Here.
No cats anymore.
Yeah, no cats. But I like cats. And what else? We can add our own tag in a particular module by passing this value to our controller. To do this, we need to specify API text decorator. It's better. And here we need to specify what we want to use as name, products. After that, all our products related endpoints will be grouped by product stack. Let's see what we'll get now. Yeah, title looks correct, and also some description what we provided. And you see now endpoints grouped in product stack, and we have only one endpoint which not related to products, and it's grouped on default tag.
Nice.
What else we have here? We have a list of our endpoints. We have some schemas, but you can see that we have empty schemas here. We will discuss it a little bit later. For now, let's try what we can do with this documentation. For example, we can get list of our products. You can see all available parameters for this method. And you can see some responses, but here's also, we have empty object and it's not right. We will discuss it, how to fix it. We can also try to send request without any additional software. I will skip all parameters. Let's just set by default and execute. So we make request to our products controller, and we get some response body. We get some items. For now, we have only one, and it's looks good.
I think this part is most useful for front-end developers.
Yeah, right. They can try.
They can try it.
Get side promise for him.
Yeah, by the way, do you see that response body and the example is completely different? Because in example, you see that response is wrapped into data field. That's strange.
Yeah, I already talking about it. That because we don't specify proper parameters for our documentation. And if you will look at its schema, you will also see that we don't have product response data. We don't have proper configuration for our product. We can't understand what's inside the product model. And to fix it, we need to specify some Swagger decorators to our model. We can use, let's go to our product entity, and we can use here API property decorator. Yeah. We can also pass some parameters to configure to set, for example, some options. It might be required option, or it might be nullable. We can set that it's not nullable false. And let's see what we'll get now. We specified API property just for one column for name. So I expect to see it in our model for now. Let's update documentation. Products. Yeah, you can see. For now, we have default response here, and in documentation, we have name field inside our model. So you can imagine that you need to specify API property for all other fields in your model, and sometimes you need to specify some additional parameters like required, nullable, or maybe some validation rules. And you need to do extra work. You need to specify some validation rules, how we do it, like it's not empty here. And it might be more complex, and you also need to describe it in documentation. So you need to prepare some extra work, and we can avoid it. We can use very useful plugin for our Swagger, and this plugin, he will allow us to omit all this documentation related decorators. He will set it for us, and I will show you how it's useful. Let's see where we can find it. Document options. If you will read documentation, you will see some notes where Nest documentation suggests you to use this plugin. Support us. I remember that it's somewhere in CLI plugin section. Yeah, here's a, and you can read some overview what you will get if you will use Swagger plugin. Here, the main feature, we don't need to specify any API property. It will be set for us. We don't need to specify required options. We can just use question mark in our fields, and it will be done for us. We don't need to specify some types or enum types. It's also will be based on our TypeScript types. We don't need to specify anything else for our documentation. Also some default properties, and you can see that several validation rules based on a class validator. So we can just write class validators rules, and our documentation will be reflected on it, and we will see that we have some limitations. And it's very nice for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Response. There is one important note about this. To use Swagger plugin, we need to name our models with some of the suffix. For example, we can use .dto.ts, or we can use .entity.ts, or we can specify our own suffix for that. And I prefer to use entity TypeScript, and we can see that we already have product entity TypeScript, so it must work.
Yeah, just a little note that the entities and the DTO is actually a bit different things. So entity is just a reflection of what you have in database, but written in objective mode in TypeScript. But DTO, it's data transfer object. It means that in DTO you describe parameters which application accepts from front end, or format in which you respond your answer. But in our situation, entity and the DTO is just very similar, but it can be different.
Yeah, so you can specify your model definition inside entity TypeScript files, and you can specify your payloads.
Yeah.
Payloads or post payloads. with DTO, and Swagger will also find these models and declare it for you, so you will see what you need to pass. And what we need to start using this amazing plugin. Using the CLI plugin. To enable the plugin, open Nest CLI JSON. And we need just to specify these rows here. Nest CLI JSON. Let's find it. Here. With specified compiler options. And for now, it must be available. And just to see some difference, let's try to remove our documentation decorators and see that our things will work well without decorators. So we don't need to specify it anymore. API property, we can remove it. So for now, we want to see all fields we expect that we will see.
So we leave only decorators for validation, because it's for validation.
Yeah, right. We need to specify validation rules, but we can omit documentation decorators.
Nice.
Because they also can be based on validation rules somewhere. And to show it, we can also provide some additional information here. It might be wrong for our application, but I will add null type here, just for example. We'll remove it later, and I will specify that this field is optional for us. And let's see how our documentation will reflect on the strings.
I think that it's okay to leave it this way, because it's a boilerplate. The main goal here is to show examples.
Let's update our page. And let's see what we'll get. Products. Yeah, maybe we need to restart our application to set a new configuration, which we declared in Nest CLI. Update. Oh no, data is empty.
I guess it's an issue this builder folder after you updated CLI JSON file. So let's just clean up the build.
Yeah, why they don't have some special option for that? Just rebuild all things. Yeah, cache might be problematic sometime.
You know that there are only two big problems in programming: it's caching and caching validation and naming.
Yeah, naming is a difficult one.
Every time you need to come up with name for a variable, module, controller.
Yeah, so for now we can see that our model displaying well, and we don't need to specify anything else for our documentation. We just use Swagger plugin for that, and let's see what we have in our schema in data column product. Yeah, you can see that we can omit description, it's optional field, and it also can have some nullable values, and it's just what we specified in regular TypeScript, and we don't need anything else. It looks good. Let's see our product model here. It's also updated, and we can see all what we need. Yeah, it looks well now, and we don't. We have one more pretty good thing. We can get JSON version of our documentation to use it somewhere else. For example, we can generate TypeScript client based on our Open API documentation. And to get JSON version for that, we can get docs JSON URL here. Yeah, and you will get JSON version. So you can pass it somehow in different source and prepare some data, or how I already said, generate TypeScript client and make some requests without additional information. It might be very useful. I will try this approach in my next project.
Mm-hmm. Could you try to send the request to get all products from documentation one more time? Because I noted that currently you receive the flat array, but in documentation it says that you will receive some pagination data, and that's not correct.
Yeah, sure. Let's try. Products list, right?
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Yeah, see, you receive a flat array. And I think that it's a default behavior, but the one in documentation is actually looks more useful because you need this data, then you implement the pagination, and it's almost always. And I think that the fix for it is to update our controller a little bit. Could you open controller code?
Yeah, sure.
And just add the, yeah, here we need another option, query, and on top level, and sub option always paginate true. Not in module, but
Yeah,
just model. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Query, and we need to specify pagination, right?
Always paginate. Yeah, true.
And it's interesting why we get default response here with dictated pagination and don't have it here. So I can understand why we don't have it here, because we don't specify always paginate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting why we have it here.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, so
okay, just try it one more time. And send request.
Write out. Yeah, now we get it with pagination, data and pagination.
Cool. So what's next? Will you create a pull request?
Yeah, sure.
I think that it's very interesting question, because pull request is how collaboration happens when you work on open source projects and private projects as well. But on open source projects you have discussions there, comments, requests from people who started the project. So I think that it's an interesting moment. Let's just do it.
Yeah, pull request is really important things.
By the way, you forked this repository before trying to before modifying code, or how you started?
I cloned repository because I have access for it.
Oh, cool.
So I don't need my own version. I can create with you. Let's open commit section. We can see all difference, what we prepare for our files. I prefer to use PHP Storm IDE for it and see all what we need. So we see all changes here for every file.
Double click.
And we also can choose particular files for our commit message. So let's try to separate two things, validation and documentation. I will try to do it. First of all, we're talking about validation, and we add library plus validator. We can include particular rows in our commit. Plus validator. You already have a class transformer library.
Yeah, we edited when we installed NestJS. It was on the first part of this series.
Okay, fine. And here you see that our both changes relative to validation and relative to documentation, they showing like one, and we can separate them. I don't know how we can avoid it in PHP Storm, but sometime ago, I used source tree software, and in this software you can choose every row to add and commit. But here we have like joined changes, so we have no chance to separate it here. Let's just add it in validation commit. Here's also all documentation product. It's not empty, yeah, it's relative to validation. In controller, what we'll get here. Here are some preter changes, and it's a good way to include it in separate pull requests, separate commits. But here we don't have time for it, so we will include everything. Products. Yeah, so I think we will relate to related to our documentation commit. Let's add yarn log 2. It's also terrible to try and add libraries, so you can just omit nobody will look at this file. Nothing interesting. Let's add some commit message and edit, validate, basic validation for project. Edit basic validation.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, our commit successfully created, and let's relate other changes to documentation. Edit, beggar, section. So let's push our changes to repository.
I'm wondering if pushing will work if it's you just cloned it, and I guess if it's under someone's ownership. But let's try it.
No.
Yeah, I already see that I don't have permission for that.
Okay, looks like I just need to add you. 1 moment.
Fun fact, by the way, I think for contribution model specifically with GitHub that is not needed. But I just realized, Denise, we haven't heard any word about you. Yes, so maybe you can introduce yourself.
Oh.
While I'm adding
good time for that. So what I can say about me, it's also a difficult question for every programmer. So I work in like a full stack developer. I'm trying front end development, back end development. Currently, mostly I have back end side, and I'm interested in any new technologies which can be famous and popular. So it's always interesting to learn something new, and I'll try to do it.
Yeah, cool. I just added you so you can try to do something what you already know how to do.
Let's try again.
No.
Permission to cannot read from remote. Cannot read from remote repository. Are you set permissions to write? Maybe I'm also read.
Oh, it's painted in white. You need to accept in white. I will send it to you.
Okay.
Okay, you need to accept in white on GitHub.
Okay.
Okay, and after Denise create pull request, I think that I will show some process of review of pull request. It's another site. So when you maintain some project and you get contributions from other people, you need to review it. And actually, I'm working with Denise, and I really like how he structures his commits, because sometimes you get big pull requests with rich features, and you need to review. Thousands lines of code, and it's very nice. Then it's split by commits, and you can just review it how it was developed, piece of feature, then another piece. Okay, Denise, how's it going?
Yeah, I accepted your invitation, and let's try again. Yeah, now it looks well.
Okay.
And you can see GitHub suggests to create a pull request, so let's do it. I use pull request section in PHP Storm.
Oh.
And here we can use create pull request plus button. And I prefer to use same names like branch, docs, and validation. And here we can provide some additional description for it. So I've added documentation with Swagger plugin, and I added basic validation. Yeah, it looks good. We can also use some template here to show how we need to describe our changes or our pull request description. We can also specify some reviewers for our code. I will specify Andrew.
Yeah.
And we can specify some labels. And let's create pull request. Can I create a new pull request? Yeah, there's also some permissions errors.
Interesting that you managed to push the code while you can't create pull request.
Could you see what we need to add?
Maybe for this time you create it from GitHub UI.
Let's try. Okay.
You can copy link suggested. Just
documentation, right? Documentation Swagger and set reviewers. Yeah, that's all. Create pull request.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, great. Then probably I just take over and review it and accept.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so I'm switching screen sharing to my screen. Okay, great. And going to GitHub, XTechnology. Okay, now I can see this pull request, and this is how review process usually look like. Usually here you have.
Andrew, sorry, can you show your screen in?
Oh yeah, of course. Just a moment. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do you see my screen? Okay, great. Okay, and that's the thing what I like about how Denise prepare pull request, that every single feature, it has a separate commit, and it has a related description. So of course on this tab, files changed, I have all the changes, but sometimes it's not 80 lines, it's 1000 lines, and it's much more useful to review changes by commits. But for now, I just take a look at the commits, and I can mark files as viewed, see what's happened here. I can leave comments here. Okay, but I just seen everything what these have done, so I just approve it. In real life, it could take hours to review sample requests, but here it was fast. Okay, and I gonna merge it. Actually, not merge. I prefer to squash it. So I won't separate commits when I review pull request, but when it goes to master, I want to have flat history, and I just want to squash all these two commits into one commit and put it into master. And after it, I just remove a branch because we don't need it anymore. And now if we go to code, we see that all changes from beneath, they are combined into one commit, and it will allow you to have nicer commits history, which is reflecting features which were in the work. And because sometimes some pull requests they consist of dozens of commits, and you don't want to see all of them in your main history. So in here we have it combined, and we also have a link to pull request where it was implemented. As here we still have two commits and see the full story. So how do I get these changes? I just go to IDE, and I'm using hotkey for git pull, and I just pull changes, and I see that one commit is updated, and I can see files which were updated since previous time. And actually I can see this, so what exactly Denise changed right in my IDE. That's also useful because usually in popular projects, when you pull changes, you receive dozens of commits, and to stay up to date, you want to check this history sometime. Okay, so now I have all the code, and I just install the dependencies which Denise installed. Come on, come on. I just type yarn. And I gonna run the project and see if I get this documentation feature. So as usual, I need to run database. I do it from Docker compose file. Oh, I've already run it actually. And I need to run NestJS. Just press play button, start dev. Come on, Nest. Build it. Probably I will get this issue with of the dist folder, but we'll check. Okay, localhost 3000.
Yeah, let's check our documentation.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, everything seems fine. Great job, Denise. Great job. Okay, we have only 5 minutes, so I guess that next time we'll continue these seeders and how we feel database. And this 5 minutes, let's just discuss what we heard just now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I will switch to dialogue so everybody can see us. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I honestly I saw this Swagger plugin before. I tried it once myself, and it seemed very. Yeah, it took me like 5 minutes actually to configure with my NestJS application. So that was surprisingly cool, and that actually confirms my point of view on NestJS in general. It's a really nice functionality, and you get it all from the box. That's something that I was missing for backend stack on Node.js myself for quite a time. And exploring NestJS, I think it fits well modern development in general for backend. Beside today's session, looks very nice, and thanks for contribution, of course. Thanks for sharing. I have some comments on naming and and commit messages, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah, we probably should have a separate session about how you write good commits messages, because I know that in different teams there are very strict rules about it, and especially if you use some task tracker and they need to bind your commits to issues in the bug tracker and so on, and how you describe it, how you see it in then you just type git log. Yeah, that's it.
Maybe what's your plans for the future with this series? What you want to show in the end? What you want to achieve that would be beneficial, I think, to know.
So I guess that I'll be able to continue in a couple of weeks and finally show my implementation of seeders and how you feel database. So that's quite nice feature that you develop application to have fake data and allow everybody to work not this empty project but this field project. And also migrations is another topic. I guess we'll combine them because they're very similar. When you work in locally, you run seeders, but then you need to deliver database changes on production, you run migrations. And we need to look at this difference. Because TypeORM, it allows you to generate database schema just from described TS files, but you can't do it on production because you can corrupt your data. So yeah,
I remembered I had a few questions during the talk actually. One was about pipes and global pipes. So we use so maybe we can elaborate a bit what that means for the application. What is the idea of pipes and global pipes as well?
Oh, I think that I will share my screen for a moment. You mean to mention it right now? Yeah, just a moment. So you see that in Nest, before requests actually hit your controller endpoint, you can have several things happen. It's filters and pipes. And so usually when we're talking about data transformation and validation, it's pipes. Filters, I do not remember actually what they stand for.
It looks like a front on the client side that is interesting.
Interesting, for sure. But
yeah. And the guards is also something similar to that, I guess, is well, middleware in Express is the right word, I'm guessing.
Yeah, guards is extremely useful thing. I'm using them a lot in my current application, and I am happy with it because you just put a single line and it will add your guard for particular controller or for particular method, and it allows you to implement very granular permission system. So that's a nice topic as well, and it's implemented in Nest beautiful in beautiful way, because you combine these guards and just build this permission system. It's advanced topic.
And a little more about filters. I remember that I used it for catch exceptions.
Oh yeah.
On database level or some validation exceptions, so we can set proper format for our errors, for our database errors, for our, for example, there is some popular library Joy where we can also configure some validation, and with help of filters we can configure different behavior and some transformation is our response and requests.
So it's actually handling errors on this state. So it looks like when something happened, you can apply filters, then response gets back.
Yeah, you can provide your own customization or exception handler.
Okay, so I think that this is it. It's already 11 o'clock. Stay tuned. Stay with us. This is XTechnology, and we'll tell you more interesting things.
Yeah, that's right. See you next session then. Thanks everyone.
Okay.